cloud. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. This is part of our regular Tuesday training series. And what we're going to talk about today is multi-factor authentication. Looks like for the guests we have, you've already changed your name. So we know we've got that information. So nobody's being secretive, which is great. We're small enough today that you're welcome to unmute whenever you want to talk. Just please, if you do when you're not, please mute just in case we hear dogs barking or whatnot. For questions outside the scope of today's meeting, there's always help.legalserver.org. There's a great reports manual, which I recommend whenever we talk about reporting stuff. This is one of the few manuals I say I think you have to read if you have reports questions. And we have a YouTube channel for those who'd like to just listen to other people talk. Lots of content there, lots of different videos. And then the support@legalserver.org email address goes to our entire support team. If you've been on board for a while, probably don't need to contact your onboarding contact, but if that's still fresh and your favorite person is still somebody like Chris Schwartz who might have onboarded you, then feel free. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is multi-factor authentication. What it does is provide an additional layer of account security. So everybody's familiar with old username and password. One thing that I think people forget sometimes is the username is one of the factors. So you could say we have two-factor authentication, which is, there's a whole religion about what you call this stuff, but a lot of usernames are easily guessable. It doesn't have to be. I probably would do that with your LegalServer account, but just as for fun and info, you may want to know that for your other account, if you have some service that only allows a username and a password, a thing you can do is make your username ridiculously long and complicated along with your password so that they're both difficult to guess, and you can save that in a password manager. So the other thing that I think folks should know is that using just username and password, there still are some things that platforms can do to make it safer than it sounds. Everybody who's involved in security, if you say, oh, it's just got simple authentication, it's a user and password, it's kind of a thing in this genre of technology for people to be like appalled on your behalf about the horrible security standards that X thing has, which is never their own organization, of course. So it is really important. I'm going to talk about multi-factor today in a way that I really hope makes it clear that I think everybody needs to be using it. And you can take a deep breath and get some good advice and think through this. The sky is not necessarily falling, but it is a big deal. So another thing that some systems can do is if somebody doesn't know your username and password and it hasn't all been revealed and it's not and it's some hack and it's not super simple, our system, for instance, does have a thing where if you guess the wrong username and password, it just slows you down time after time. So it makes it much harder for somebody to just spam our system with username password attempts over and over and over again using something like a dictionary text. So username and password is not quite as insecure as the super paranoid people who enjoy getting your blood pressure up will tell you, but it is becoming really outdated. And multi-factor has gotten so much better now that I think everybody needs to be looking at it. And I still predict one of these days, your cyber insurance providers are going to just say you have to. People are going to have that kind of breach insurance and are going to say, well, you have to have multi-factor, especially if you're a law firm. So what multi-factor does, it takes that ye old username and password and adds another something else, for instance. And one day I think the username and password will be may go away. Like password, my username will probably still have, but password may go away entirely. But we'll talk about that in a second. All right, when you have multi-factor authentication, a lot of times it's not, most systems don't ask you to put in the something else every single time. There's usually some amount of time for which your if you put in your username, your password, and you do this other thing, this other factor, that lasts for a while. And the smartest systems will prompt you again if something looks different. So maybe you're hitting it from a different country or a different state or an IP range that's different. The smartest systems will challenge you again based on criteria. I found this on the internet. There's what are multi-factors. I kind of just like the way this rolls off the tongue. Like they're things that you know, or things that you have, or things that you are. So you are a person with eyeballs, probably, who has a retinal pattern that's supposedly unique. Apparently voices and faces are pretty unique, and you've seen those as methods to unlock devices like mobile phones. Things you have. This is for the LegalServer version of multi-factor. We don't have this, but as we'll discuss, if you use a security tool from somebody like Okta or Google or Microsoft Azure or one of the other big daddies, many of them support a hardware device. It could be literally a bracelet or like a key fob. There's these little devices that have basically gigantic codes in them, gigantic, super long passwords, unbelievably long passwords on them that are stored on a hardware device. So we don't support that natively. LegalServer doesn't, not really, but there are devices that do that. However, another thing you can have is a mobile phone, and the mobile phone can have an app on it that does the same kind of thing. And then there's things that you know, so passwords and that sort of thing. I want to go back because I think I sort of misstated this the first time. I think the app authentication that we do have, which is one of the ways you can do authentication, does fall into the things you have category. But we don't have one of those little things that's just a hardware device. So what you need to do if you want to use it through LegalServer. So there's going to be two options I'm going to talk about. One is you can turn it on in multi-factor authentication on in LegalServer. The other one is you can use you can leave it alone in LegalServer, but if you already have something like G Suite or Office 365 based on Azure in the cloud, Azure AD in the cloud, or you want to look at a system like Okta or one of these other platforms, you can turn on multi-factor in this other platform and integrate with LegalServer. So there's two options. Right now, the option I'm talking about is, no, I don't want to use the same key to get into my Gmail as I get into LegalServer. That's the option I'm talking about right now. So inside of LegalServer, if you want to flip this on, it is free. It is available right now everywhere. I'm looking at Ron right now in case that's not true, but I'm pretty sure we've turned this on all demo and all live sites at no cost, and have moved it to where you can turn it on yourself. So you just you have to be an administrator, go to site settings and authentication, and you're going to turn on multi-factor authentication enable. That actually says PSTI only. Am I right that everybody can do this now, Ron and Chris? Good. Maybe demo 4 is
I was under the impression that we still had to turn it on for folks, but that we could do that at the support level.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess we're still on. Oh, yeah. I guess it's still on us. So you need to let us know that you want it. You can just send us an email. It's coming though, that we're just going to flip this on for everybody to be able to enable it. So that's my bad. I thought we had already done that. It's coming, but just shoot us an email, and in the blink of an eye, otherwise known as a couple of days or less, we can flip the switch for you. Once it's on, you're going to see that you can require multi-factor for certain roles. A thing that we will probably be doing this fall is looking at the data on, well, not the data, looking at the information on people's sites to figure out if they have this turned on for at least one role, probably administrator. We're not going to do it for you. We're not going to make you do anything, but my feeling is you ought to at least have multi-factor turned on for your admins. Okay. And then, but if you're experimenting with it, my suggestion is turn it on demo, maybe make an additional account that you're going to get rid of later. Might be one way if you want to be really like delicate about it. Or turn it on for just one administrator if you have more than one administrator, so they can walk themselves through signing up. Once you do it once, I don't think you'll have a problem. But stick your toe in the water on your demo site first, be my recommendation. And then you're going to have to choose how you want people to be able to authenticate. You'll see that you have a choice. This choice is rolled over to email or mobile device app. There is no doubt, it's not arguable. The mobile device app is more secure, because it's, if, let me put it this way, if somebody has their mobile device and they've figured out how to log into the mobile device, like they're in. And a common hack is to try to crack into people's email address and then spread out to other things they have access to. So most security experts would say it's more likely somebody has already hacked into somebody's email, which is a long way of saying overall the community says the more secure thing to choose is mobile device app. And we give you the option of saying just mobile device app for the second factor. And that's the most conservative choice here, but you can also use email, or you can leave it at both, either or. And the point of, what's the what am I talking about? I'm going to skip forward a couple of slides. One methodology is, if you choose mobile device app, the user is eventually going to see this on their screen, and they're going to need to have installed an app, not a LegalServer app, but one of the authenticator apps on their phone. It can be any of the popular authentication apps. You can use, believe it or not, follow me here, you can use Google's Authenticator app to log into anything to get this code, because all it does is you scan this QR code, and then what happens, the way the system works is, behind the scenes, a temporary one-time code is sent out about, I think it's every minute or so, and it changes. And so it's like a password that changes a lot, and that you only get if you have this app on your phone, and that's how that works. Importantly, if you use the phone, and I realize I should have a picture of a phone here to make it better eye candy. Importantly, if you use the phone version and the internet goes down, well, let's say the internet goes down, your phone loses connection for whatever reason, this is still going to work, because the phone app will continue. I don't know how long it can go there. It still can show you, based on some kind of algorithm, the codes for a while, even if it's separated from the internet. So this is one of the ways. Use the phone. The other way is an email. Is email, and the way the email system works is, when the person goes to log into LegalServer, they will get an email. In that email will be a one-time code, and they'll need to type that code in to get into LegalServer. So what are they going to need? 3 things. They're going to need their username, their password, and then this one-time code. So again, on how you set things up, you'll need multi-factor auth enable, which is still PSTI only, but not for long. Let us know if you don't see that when you go to site settings authentication, or we're not responding to turning it on for you. You need to decide which roles it's going to be required on, and then you need to decide which mechanisms you're going to allow. For ease of use for users, leave it at email or mobile device app. For what most people in the community think is greatest security, turn it over to mobile device app only. Just be ready to support users who are not very good at using their mobile phones. or installing apps or using computers generally. So there's no way around the fact that the user is going to have to do some stuff, and you'll have to know what your user's sort of tolerance is for new things. But the user is going to have to actually connect themselves to multi-factor authentication, because it's one user at a time. You got to turn it on for yourself, because obviously there's a chicken and the egg problem. I guess that's the only way I can say that. When the user goes to enable multi-factor for themselves. So now this is a user looking at their own user profile, enable MFA. And in this one, that was email address, email. This is email, right? So that the user receives a code via email, they enter the authenticator code, hit continue, and they're signed up. If they use the phone version, it's same thing, although there is kind of a little hint here, that it is possible for them, all the Google, the phone authenticator apps, and I realize I feel like I'm making it more confusing, but all of the phone apps let you either take a picture of this, or you'll notice there's a little key down here. If the person just can't figure out taking a picture of the thing with their phone, they actually can just type that key in their mobile authenticator app, that long series of numbers and letters, and it will do the same thing, sync it up, and start providing temporary one-time passwords as a third factor. The person can disable, well, probably may be able to disable their MFA for their account, depending on what settings you've set. Importantly, right? So you have decided as a policy, let's say, that the entire agency is going to use multi-factor authentication. The best way we have right now for you to check and see if folks are doing this is to create a report and see in that report, you create a report of all the users and print out a report of whether MFA is enabled for those users. And it works fine. We had a situation where we had to help an organization get this done. They needed to make those moves in a hurry for some compliance and other reasons. And we quickly just made a report for them. And it was very easy to see whether the users had signed up, had turned on multi-factor for themselves, and even which flavor they had chosen. So you can do this. You just need a report. It's something where if this matters a lot to you, whether your users have turned it on, you can verify that if you click required that they're all doing it, et cetera, et cetera. I recommend, if this matters to you, for running a report, having a report ready for multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions so far about multi-factor? Danielle, Law, how am I doing? About my team. Got a bunch of people from LegalServer here. Any questions so far? Or comments, clarifications?
No, it seems pretty straightforward. And you mentioned that this is going to be the standard for new sites that are spun up.
I didn't mention that.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's coming, where every new site is going to have this enabled by default. We just want to protect. I really am shy about telling other people what to believe and what to do in the security context. But this is one of those where, and the reason that we haven't, I guess, pushed on it harder is everybody who works in LegalServer in the client-facing capacity has worked in legal aid programs. We know how hard it's going to be for you to convince some users to do this. They're going to hate it. They're going to say it's a pain. They're going to say it's not necessary. They're going to, they're the ones probably who have their password on a sticky note on the monitor. That's actually not the biggest thing to worry about as far as I'm concerned anyway. It's sophisticated hackers trying to get at email addresses. and password. It's hackers who go and get login credentials from some other source and then get into LegalServer. So they find Lisa Mendoza's login credentials from something else. So maybe some other software that you use. They crack that. They guess that Lisa probably is using the same password in many places. Turns out they're right. And then they log into other things, including LegalServer, and they didn't have to do that one other thing to prove that they're Lisa. And that's where we're going. Multi-factor authentication is available right this moment. We have to turn it on for you, but that's going to end. But for now, if you're ready to turn it on or even play with it in demo, just send an email to support@legalserver.org, and we will flip the switch for you so that it's available. But then you'll need to go through the steps at help.legalserver.org, which I'll maybe somebody can put a fresh link in the chat for the link to multi-factor authentication. To answer Felicia's question. Does that answer your question, Felicia? Okay. So one other thing that I want to talk about, there's some touch, look and feel things that we want to play with. There is another way to get multi-factor authentication using LegalServer, and that is to leverage multi-factor authentication in tools that you already use. So if you use Office 365, you can, behind that is the sort of some of the sort of cloud infrastructure behind that is something called Azure, Azure, which is a bunch of Microsoft products. And if you use Google, it's Google Workspaces, they have single sign-on available. And then there's a couple of companies like Okta, OKTA, that what they sell is identity services. What they sell, their whole reason for being is, we're the people who are going to help you verify that Chris Schwartz is Chris Schwartz. And so what they're doing is building the most sophisticated methods they can build, so that when Chris goes to log in somewhere, we know it's really, really Chris. And so that's the acronym central by, right, but it's MFA in LegalServer via SSO or single sign-on. So these different methodologies can give you multi-factor authentication in email or text. SMS is still a thing that people do. We don't, but some companies, some platforms provide that. There's that app I was talking about, like Google Authenticator. And there's also something I'll talk about in a second called like a hardware key, where the third factor is a super long code on like a thumb drive, for instance, or something like that. And then lots of other things, right? So there is, I guess, retina scan out there in the world. There's the face unlock, which I think Google phone, Android has it. I think iOS does as well. And these other platforms, they're one of the reasons I think you should consider single sign-on with one of the big platforms you already use, and then just make LegalServer one of the things that you log into with that, is that there is a team of engineers doing nothing but trying to think of the cleverest next way to verify that Danielle Blair really is Danielle Blair. And we're probably not going to be the ones to build that. It's going to be somebody who lives this night and day. So it's worth considering. The downside is that Jonathan Pyle, who's one of the smartest people I know, disagrees with me on this and thinks it's dangerous. He thinks, let's not put all your keys in the same box. So you've now heard both that there are varying views on this. But it has some lovely advantages, like when you hire somebody, you can turn on their access in multiple places. And when somebody leaves, so one of the biggest actual threats to data being exfiltrated is not somebody, well, one of the biggest ones, larger than some person you don't know taking data, is unfortunately an insider being either sloppy or vindictive and leaking a bunch of information. So you more and more in our world probably turn off someone's access to everything in a hurry when they walk out the door, especially if they walk out the door angry. And an advantage of single sign-on having having your identity provided via single sign-on is you can turn off their access to lots of things with the flip of one switch. So again, I'm going to say this because I know there's somebody on our team who's like very, very paranoid about this. Single sign-on is not the same as multi-factor authentication, but you're an idiot if you use single sign-on and you don't go ahead and turn on multi-factor authentication, for at least, God forbid, at least for some of your accounts. But they really push you. If you're trying to even think on Google Workspaces, I'm trying to think if they have a nag on there or not. But they've got these great multi-factor ways to built in, so you can just turn it on over there. I exaggerated that a little bit. Oh, interesting. Michael Hoffrichter says MailChimp gives you a 10 or 15% discount if you use multi-factor. So yeah, I'm going to strike that from our. You're not an idiot if you don't use multi-factor if you're using single sign-on, but oh my goodness, is it a wise way to leverage the tools they have? So one of the things that you might be able to get through Okta or maybe Azure or Google is this is an example of one of the kinds of multi-factor that they support that we don't currently. Is this is a one particular company, Yubico, an example of a hardware device that, like I said, essentially has a super long password in it, super long, but it also has this NFC thing where you can tap it against something. So it's a Ubico is where it's at. That I keep saying I think this may catch on as people like my parents eventually, if they ever get to the point where they've got to do multi-factor. This is something I feel like my mom could understand, right? This is your extra key, maybe. It's certainly popular and growing. And I took a screenshot of this from Yubico's site because this is an iPhone logging into Google with a multi-factor device that is the Yubico, right? So just an example, like, wow, this convergence. Everybody needs a security, and it's getting, they're all learning to play together because we have to. You just need to be more careful. All right. So that is multi-factor. There again, we're not requiring anything. What I would like to do is maybe nudge folks later in the fall. It's not something that we've built out yet, but we may do something like just see if multi-factor is enabled for your site, available, and make sure that's available for everybody. And then look to see if it's required for your admin roles, which might be a good place to start. Okay, so questions. Danielle and Law, you were first. You feel free to unmute yourself and ask if you have any questions. Cecilia, Felicia, questions? No, Law, it looks like you unmuted yourself.
Sorry, it was a mistake.
Oh, no problem.
So I may have missed, but how do you enable single sign-on?
Great. So single sign-on, actually, you would tell us which flavor you want, and there is a fee for that. There's a charge to integrate with single sign-on, but you literally just send us an email and say, I want to use single sign-on with Okta or Google Workspaces or Microsoft Azure. Those are the three we support right now, and we will get you the pricing info. And then we press some buttons, and then and we'd link you to the help site of what you need to do from there. There's some things you need to do inside of your productivity suite. So inside of Google or inside of Azure. I think the easiest one is probably Okta, but that costs some money. And And the only thing the Okta gets you is identity management, doesn't get you access to any of these other tools. Does that make sense? Does that answer a question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I'm not favoring it because it costs us some money. I mean, it is just a thing that we need to keep our tools in sync with these companies who change their offerings now and then. So my slight preference for using those is really that for me personally, having been an admin, I like the ability to turn off somebody's access in all the places at once, and they're probably going to have more cutting edge multi-factor offerings. Great. Michael or Craig, anything I missed that you think I should add?
Question. I'm sorry about that previously. I'm sure it was loud with the street here. For right now, it's just once a day, right? That you have to authenticate.
It's probably less. Well, yes, yes. For the LegalServer version, I think that's exactly what it is. For some of these other platforms, they're a little less mechanical. I think you might go 20 days or something at a max, or there's some things that you can adjust. And but yes, yes, just once a day. It won't be every time you log in. We'll probably spend some time on these features though, because we would like to make our version smarter as well, so that we can say, you know what, even if it's 3 days later, if it's from the same IP address, and there's some other kind of cool things we might be able to do to say, and it looks like normal Cecilia behavior, we're not going to prompt again. But yes, once a day I think is exactly what we have it set to right now for LegalServer version. Does that seem, do you feel like your users, Cecilia, do you think your users would be okay with that?
Yeah, I think so. I tested already the demo site and presented that to the staff meeting, and they were not super happy, but they were not resistant to have it to do it once a day. And I think it might be interesting to see, because we also need to add the Microsoft ones for the email too, mainly because our insurance is asking to have these things in place already. Not mainly because we want to be responsible for the data of our client and the people that we work with, but also because the insurance is asking for this.
Thank you. So I knew it was going to happen one day. Thank you for that. So that insurance was going to ask for it. That's the other reason to think about it. Is that, I mean, personally, I worry that when you tell your users that they have to do their multi-factor to get into their email, and then they go to log into LegalServer and they have another one, I think that's going to confuse some people a little bit. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Just saying that is another argument in favor of maybe doing your multi-factor through your Microsoft products. But we made this available for free, and we're more than whatever gets you to using multi-factor. We're thrilled.
Yeah, I think I honestly did not know about the Microsoft option, and I'm not handling the email part on our organization, so I don't know what's the step they're going to take. But I'm going to share this information. And for now, in my experience, because I'm using on the demo side, it's not a big deal. I've been doing it every day. It's fine, and it works well. The only thing is, I think I mentioned this to Ron at the beginning. I wanted to test it with another user, and I didn't. And I didn't know that on the demo side, you have to be an admin to test it. So I don't know if you want to let that know to others.
Interesting. You have to be an admin to test on the demo site.
Demo sites won't send an email to non-administrators.
Right. Of course. Yeah, no, that's true. If you're gonna use the email version. No, but you should be able to use the non-email version, which is the phone app one. You could test that on them on demo.
Yeah, I think leadership and staff were not very excited about the app. So for now, we're gonna do the email and see if we can, once they get used, we can, you know, make the case of being more secure. And, you know, we use it on our personal things, we use it for many things. So if we can provide something that is kind of like a bundle, like something simple, it might be a good option too. But I think we're taking baby steps here.
Yes,
So-
totally understood.
One thing to note is that if you're using something like 1Password elsewhere for your password management, 1Password could be that app that is the secure code, right? And so if you're already saying, look, we've got this password management system that we're using for your grant passwords and your email passwords and your office account passwords and your vendor passwords, right? That if that can also be the source of truth for the app place, like that makes it really powerful to say, hey, look, we're linking this all together. It's all going to work together. Can we just do it with that app functionality?
Mm.
And 1Password does that. Bitwarden does that. I think LastPass does that. Like a lot of the big name password vaults will have this the one-time password, or TOTP is sometimes what it's called. But I think that makes it a really powerful way to secure not just LegalServer, but your other devices and logins as well.
That's true. Good point, Michael. Now, I suppose that's a thing that we probably, in retrospect, maybe I would have done a year ago, is start telling people, try convincing everybody to use a password manager first, so you can at least get them to use hard passwords and not repeat. And now they have these other nice features where they have some of this functionality as well. Great. Thank you so much, Cecilia. I really appreciate the feedback. Has anybody else on the call tried to implement this or tested it or have plans to with users? Okay. All right. Well, I am going to stop recording here. So I hope the people of the future find that the Delta variant has been squashed. Everything's good. There's no Lambda variant or other variants messing with the world, and everybody has easily and successfully adopted multi-factor. Stop recording.